Well, hello, I am J. Lauren Norris, and you're watching Leading Leaders Podcast. I want to ask you a question. Is there a chance if the pyramid of results that we've been looking at over the last few episodes is really as foundational as they say, experience, which leads to belief, which leads to choices, which leads to results, and that feedback loop from results back to experience to say the results that I have right now feed the experience that I also have, the things that I believe come from those experiences I've had. And if I look broke, feel broke, and act broke, I might be a duck. A broke duck. Right? You follow that line of thought? The circumstances that I find myself in are also the experiences that I have. So as I experience those things, I also find that I learn from them, I believe in them, I choose because of them. What happens if you realize, though, that your experiences have lied to you? Is that possible? Is it possible that what you've actually seen, participated in, felt emotionally, felt physically, was deception? That you made a series of decisions to do things, choices based on what you perceived to be a real experience and then found out later it wasn't? How could that happen? I want to take you to a television series because it's so well illustrated. Excuse me. This concept. I don't know if you're a watcher of Criminal Minds, but there was a season in Criminal Minds where one of the main characters, one of the profilers, her past, if you will, had caught up with her. The people from her past that she thought she dealt with in another job, in another career, and another lifetime began to hunt her down, and people around her were starting to die, and then she ended up in a battle for her life. And they had her funeral. And her team was devastated. Young Dr. Reed, overwhelmed with grief because this was one of his, not just teammates, but a mentor, someone he really, really looked up to. It was a big deal when Prentice was gone. And for several episodes, the aftermath of the missing Prentice being gone from the team and trying to find the replacements to replace that personality and that character on the BAU was hard, and it was hard to deal with, and it was an emotional part of the season. Then she came back. Wait, but you were dead. And all of the evidence, all of the emotional proof, all of the funeral, the burying, the whole thing. They experienced the loss. They believed she was gone. Now she's back. What if what you believe based on your experience is a lie? If your experiences are lying to you, can you change your choices, change your belief, and change your results? I think you can, if you can identify the lie. You've got to identify the lies in your own experiences. Those relationships that weren't what you thought they were. Those educational experiences that were not what you thought they were. Those people, those mentors, those teachers who came and went from your life that they were not who you thought they were. The words of wisdom and compassion that they poured into you, not what you thought they were. See, now we have a bigger dilemma. How do you let go of people who have been so important to you? See, when Princess came back, there was a lot of hatred, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, a lot of resentment that why couldn't you just tell us the truth? You trusted no one with this truth that you weren't really dead, this truth that you were really hiding, this truth that was an absolute truth. We didn't get that. We got the lie. And there's justifiable reason to be upset with someone who's lying to you a lie of that magnitude. What if you could just change what you believe based on other absolute truth? What if there was a foundational truth, a set of values and principles that far exceed your own experiences, things that have been proven over and over and over to be true? You know, like gravity, as an example. You could attempt to believe that gravity doesn't work for you. That if you wanted to walk off the roof of the building, that you would fly. Maybe you've seen Toy Story. Buzz Lightyear is convinced he can fly. And Woody says, no, that's not flying. Although it's really cool, it's more like falling with style. Could you simply change the world with your belief? You can change your own. See, here's the thing you got to be cautious about. The things that you believe will impact your choices. And those choices will impact your results. And those results will impact your circumstances. And those circumstances will become the experiences through which you live and move and become who you are. And no, you can't trust every experience to be a solid foundation of truth. You can't. Because there are people who choose to deceive. And no, you can't trust just what you choose to believe. You've got to have a foundation of absolute truth. Gravity doesn't care what you believe. Gravity works every time. It really does. Gravity's a law. Gravity doesn't argue with Baptists different than it does with Buddhists, with Muslims different than it does with Methodists. Gravity treats all of them the same, conservative or liberal. Gravity doesn't care. Republican or Democratic. Gravity doesn't care. Gravity is a universal law. It is a truth. There are laws that will override it, like the law of lift, but the law of gravity, that's true. And if you've ever tripped over the concrete and fallen on your face, you know gravity is true. No one falls up. If you jump out of an airplane, no one falls sideways. We all fall back toward the earth. Without regard for political affiliation, or religious training, or level of training. A high school graduate or a high school dropout. A PhD or a GED. When you come out of the airplane, gravity says back to earth. It's not a negotiation. Sure, you can put on a wingsuit or a parachute and fall with style. But man wasn't made to fly without some aid. And so you're going to go down. Back to the earth. When you realize that there are some absolutes in life, whether you like it or not. When you realize that other people probably have at some point or another manipulated you to get their own results in line. When you realize that you've probably even experienced some things on your own that were of your own making, some choices of your own making, some consequences that you predetermined to make that they weren't altogether true. It is possible, too, that you've manipulated your own perspective of events to allow yourself to believe that you did the best you could. You really didn't abuse that person. You really weren't the bad guy or bad girl in this scenario. You might have manipulated what you believe even when deep down in your heart you know it's not altogether true. You manipulated the circumstances a little bit, manipulated the experience a little bit. If I say I didn't really do wrong, then who can say otherwise? I was the only one there. But what you believe, that will become evident. So in the last episode, we talked about how do you then change this vicious cycle from experience to belief to choices to results. How do we keep that from becoming a perpetual cycle that gives us no options? The answer is somewhere along the path you have to insert different than what is already there. Insert a different experience. If you've always eaten at the barbecue restaurant and you cannot figure out why every night you go to bed with heartburn, you can alter the experience by trying another dining option. If you believe that the people around you love you and care for you, and yet they're the ones abusing you and stealing your money from you and taking your time from you, then maybe you need to change what you believe about them and come back to some core foundational beliefs. But there are those things that you can believe that by better understanding them and better believing them, you'll change the way you view the circumstances that have already come into your life. And by changing the view of those circumstances, you can't change the circumstance, but you can believe differently about them in such a way that your results will change. And even be it so slightly from the set of experiences you have now and the belief about them, by shifting that belief a little bit, you move the choices a little bit and you move the results a little bit, and then the feedback loop gives you a new set of experiences to believe something differently, to choose something differently for a new set of results. And again, you can move. And it's just a minor shift day by day in the things that you do and say and believe about yourself and about the people around you. Remember, in the first episode of this series, we talked about, do I believe the world is conspiring for my good? Or do I believe that the world is conspiring for my demise? That is a choice. That is a chosen belief. Do I choose to believe the world is out to get me? Or do I choose to believe that the world wants me to succeed? It seems like such a small difference, but it's a really big deal in altering the course of your life. It will change your choices, your results, and your experiences or your circumstances every time you can leapfrog forward. Do I believe the world is conspiring for my good? Or do I believe the world is conspiring against me? That's my question for you today. Because it really does come back to what you believe. Now, if you're a person of faith like I am, then the Bible, the Word of God, says of itself, faith comes by hearing, and hearing comes from the Word. And so to build your belief about what God says about the universe, like gravity being universal and doesn't care about your religion, if you believe those things to be true, reading the Bible helps you to understand more of those foundational truths and values, those foundational principles. But what you believe must be founded on something that can't be shaken by every changing opportunity. What you believe about people, what you believe about yourself, needs a foundational value, not just an experiential value. So I want you to challenge yourself with that question throughout the course of the day today. As good things happen, as bad things happen, as life goes on around you and the circumstances of your day feed you information, ask yourself constantly, do I believe this event, this incident, this moment, these people are conspiring for my good? Or do I believe they're conspiring against me? If you'll choose to believe that even in the worst of circumstances, the world is conspiring for your good, that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. If you'll choose to believe that, your perspective on life and the circumstance you find yourself in will change drastically. That's my challenge for you today. Thanks for being here as part of the Leading Leaders podcast. Feel free to subscribe and share. We love having you here. I'm J. Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.